Well, let me be the one to say the opportunity is out there. It is. And I know it sounds like a platitude. It sounds like one of those things that you just say to people to try to get out of a conversation, or maybe you just say it because you don't know of anything else to say, and so you just throw out this nicety. But I really mean that. The next opportunity is around the corner. I don't know how long the corner is, but the next opportunity is there, and you will find it. And even more than that, I think it's really important to note that all of this experience that you're going through during your transition, even the negative thoughts, the hard nights, the hard conversations, the rejection, the hard look back on your previous work experience and taking that honest assessment of yourself and figuring out where you can improve for your future opportunity. Those hard conversations that you may have to have with yourself, those hard decisions that you may have to make with your spouse or with your family about what you need to do in this difficult time. Do you need to downsize? Do you need to get rid of a car? Do you need to get rid of subscriptions? You need to apply for some state help that can help you if you're in a situation that you need. Those hard decisions, those hard conversations is only going to make you stronger if you look at it that way. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Job Seeker's Journey podcast. This is going to be more of a special episode in that it's going to be a little bit shorter. I don't have a guest this week, but there's been a few things that have been on my mind with what's gone on this last week in the United States and how that can relate to going through a job search journey. Now, obviously, this week has been tough for the entire country in one way or the other. Either we've had an assassination of a prominent political figure, and no matter what side you're on of that, that is a big deal. And there have been a lot of things that have come out of that. There's also been a stabbing. There's been news come out of the Middle East. There has been a lot of different things go on this week. And depending on how you decided to look at those particular situations, determined what type of information you were being fed. So if you were on a side where you were looking up all of the negative news that came out of, say, the assassination, then it was not hard to find a lot of negativity, whether it be the people that were celebrating the death or the people who were upset at the people celebrating the death. There were people that were, how do I say this? There were people that were getting upset at the person in general and trying to discredit him as a person. There were people that were calling out other people and trying to get them fired. There were people that were getting fired. There was a lot of negativity. And if you wanted to see it, it was not hard to find it. And by the same token, if you wanted to see good, you could have looked up the good things about this person. You could have looked up the fact that he was a family man. If you're into religion, you can look up the fact that he was religious and that he seemed to be a good person to his daughter and his wife, and that he was trying to bring his ideals to college campuses, and the fact that he was trying to get dialogue and debate going instead of just hate. But no matter what side you were on, you can find that information. And as I thought about that situation and thought about other situations that go on, it made me think about the job search. Because just like in the situation I just brought up, if you want to, you can find all the negativity that you want to find about the job market, about companies today, about the fact that it's just really hard to find that next opportunity. You can find whatever you are looking for. And on the flip side, if you're looking for some positive news, finding people that have unique stories that were able to find their next opportunity, people that were able to find new and exciting ways to find that next opportunity. If you were looking for that, you can find it. And this week marks the first week of my new job, which is obviously extremely exciting. And I am loving it so far. I can't wait to do more and more with my new teammates, to meet the clients that I'll be having, to accomplish the projects that I'll be assigned to. But as I look back on the last year and I look at the times when I struggled the most, it was when I seemed to be searching out, whether consciously or even maybe subconsciously, I was searching out negative things. My algorithm on LinkedIn was filled daily with people that were struggling, that were complaining about this company or that company or a situation they were in. And when I would be heavily in that, I would find myself isolating myself a little bit, feeling like the corporate world may be turning against me. I know I've said that phrase to my wife at least once. And undoubtedly, when I would have that feeling, it would be the weeks where I would see heavy negativity. And on the flip side, if I had a week where I saw a lot of positive things, I saw people finding jobs, I saw people that were helping people find new opportunities. When I would talk to a guest on this podcast that was sole mission was to help other people. In those particular weeks, I had my head up, I was confident, and I knew that the next thing was right around the horizon. And I think that's the point of this particular episode. There's a phrase, I think it may be a Bible verse, that says, seek and you'll find. And that applies when you are going through a tough situation like a job search. I'm obviously not naive to the fact that the job market is very tough and companies are acting different than they ever did before. And candidates are doing different things than they ever did before, trying to find that new opportunity. Some are working, some are not. And I'm not naive to the fact that it is a very tough time. Costs of living are going up. Our expenses like groceries and other things are going up, which adds pressure to being in a job search. And I'm not even suggesting that you should ignore those things, because for some people, myself included, things like that can be motivation to get me up and get me moving forward still. Where I think it becomes dangerous is when you let yourself dwell in that negativity and dwell in those feelings of this just isn't going to happen for me. It may happen for that person, but it may not happen for me. And if you're listening to this and you just heard me say that I was sitting in my first week of my new opportunity, maybe you're going, well, that's great for you, but it's been a year for me or a year and a half for me, and I'm still searching. Well, let me be the one to say the opportunity is out there. It is. And I know it sounds like a platitude. It sounds like one of those things that you just say to people to try to get out of a conversation, or maybe you just say it because you don't know of anything else to say, and so you just throw out this nicety. But I really mean that. The next opportunity is around the corner. I don't know how long the corner is, but the next opportunity is there, and you will find it. And even more than that, I think it's really important to note that all of this experience that you're going through during your transition, even the negative thoughts, the hard nights, the hard conversations, the rejection, the hard look back on your previous work experience and taking that honest assessment of yourself and figuring out where you can improve for your future opportunity. Those hard conversations that you may have to have with yourself, those hard decisions that you may have to make with your spouse or with your family about what you need to do in this difficult time. Do you need to downsize? Do you need to get rid of a car? Do you need to get rid of subscriptions? Do you need to apply for some state help that can help you if you're in a situation that you need? Those hard decisions, those hard conversations is only going to make you stronger if you look at it that way. There's a saying that goes on a lot that talks about every job is a stepping stone. And I used to not understand that phrase so much, especially when I was first starting out, just out of college, and I was in my first job and I really wasn't doing what I was hoping to do long term, but I was doing something and getting paid for it more than just a college job. And I was learning responsibility, and I was learning what it meant to be in an office. And I was learning what it meant to be professional and to be around other people and act professionally, and email etiquette, phone etiquette, all of those things that really you don't learn in college unless you have a really good internship program. All of those things was a stepping stone. I learned how to take tough phone calls in that first job. I tell a story a lot. And in fact, this story got me a future opportunity later down the road. But an example of something that I learned was my first job was an oil and gas supply company called Baker Hughes. And I got to go through an onboarding program, which is great. I've talked about that before. And I got shipped off to Huntington Beach, California for my first real job, which is a great place to be shipped to. When you think about all the places you could be shipped to for oil and gas, Huntington Beach, California is an amazing place to be shipped. And I was in marketing support, so I was taking orders, I was putting orders in the system, I was doing customer service with our clients. And one day I got a phone call from a guy that was extremely upset. And to set the stage a little bit, I had literally talked to this guy 2 weeks previous. And he was upset because the drive that runs the equipment that we sold him wasn't working. And it turned out it was a really easy fix. There was a reset button that he needed to press before he could press the start button. And if he didn't press that, especially if the power went out or anything like that, it wasn't going to work. And we had worked through this 2 weeks previous. But this particular day, I got this phone call. And the moment I said, hello, well, this is Baker Hughes, this is Brad Stair, he started in. And it was one of those conversations where you know that if you say anything, you are going to make it worse. So it's just one of those conversations that you need to take. And for the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'm not exaggerating that, this guy yelled at me. And first he started in on the equipment that we sold him. And then he moved on to the company that I worked for and how terrible we were. And our customer service was so terrible. Keep in mind, I had helped him 2 weeks previous. But the company was terrible. It's the worst customer service. It's the worst company. Then he started in on me. And he got personal. And he came after me as a person. And he said that my parents, who he would have no way of knowing, did a horrible job raising me, that I shouldn't be allowed to breathe air, that I'm the worst customer service person he's ever dealt with in his entire life. I really should crawl in a hole and die. Things like that. And after about 10 to 15 minutes, he finally ran out of things to yell about. And this whole time, I'm just sitting there taking it. And after he gets done yelling, I take myself off of mute and I said, okay, how can I help you? And as he started in on what his actual problem was, it turned out to be the exact same thing that I had just helped him with 2 weeks previous. And when I told him that, his exact phrase to me was, okay. And he got off the phone. Now, why do I tell you that? That's probably the worst phone call that I've been a part of in my professional life. It was the most personal. It had the most language. It was the one where he literally probably wanted me to go die. In fact, he said so. But what did I learn in that? None of that was about me. None of it. He was frustrated. And he wasn't frustrated because anything my company had done, our equipment had done. The oil field that he was in was prone to power surges. And when a field is prone to power surges, they had this issue. And if you didn't press the proper buttons, it wouldn't restart. But the whole reason for that was a safeguard so that you didn't burn up your equipment, right? None of that was about me. And by being able to take that terrible phone call, when I got into projects later on where I had a frustrated client, or I had a frustrated shop, or I had a frustrated upper management, or whatever, and they were upset and they were yelling, I remembered back to that first phone call and I remembered this isn't really about me, because what they're yelling about isn't really me, isn't really something I did. Or if it is, it's fixable. So a horrible situation that I could look at as this guy's a complete jerk, he should have been fired or whatever, right? I could look at it that way. Or I can take the lesson, I can learn, and I can move forward, and it's going to make me better. And I think that's a lesson that helped me in my job search. Whenever I would have 3 or 4 rounds of great interviews and I thought this was my next opportunity and I was just waiting on that offer to come in, and then the phone call I got was, we're moving forward with someone else. I remembered that first phone call that I was just describing. And I thought, it's going to be all right. I can handle this. And when that happened for 4 times, got to the final round, thought that I was close to an offer, and it didn't happen, I remembered back to that first phone call. And I went, you know what? It's just time to move forward. Maybe this wasn't about me. And a lot of them were not. In fact, none of them were. They all had different reasons. Market conditions, loss of a project, better qualified person that they had talked to that just beat me out with experience or their knowledge of that particular software or particular product. And then the job I ended up getting was one of those 4 months later. Because I thought back to that original project, or that original phone call that I was talking about, I didn't burn a bridge whenever I didn't hear the news that I was hoping for. I said, thank you. I really enjoyed speaking with you. And I hope if down the line, there is something that you will think of me. And you know what? Months later, they did. And now I have my next opportunity. So I hope that's encouragement. But I also hope this makes you think. What you're feeding your mind is what you're going to see more of. If you feed your mind negativity, you're going to see a lot of negative things. It's not hard to find. Social media, news, friends, it's not hard to find. But if you start feeding your mind some positivity and you start knowing that everything that you're doing is building for that next opportunity, all that experience, what you're experiencing during this job search, all of it is building for that next opportunity. If you can keep that in mind, you'll start seeing more positive things. You start seeing people that are willing to help. You start seeing the tactics that are actually starting to work, and you may actually start implementing them. Instead of staying hard-headed and continuing down the exact same path that is not working. I've said this before to a couple of guests, so I apologize if you've heard this before. But doing this podcast has put me in a really interesting position. Yes, I was going through a job search myself, and I was looking at a lot of things on LinkedIn because I wanted to know, and I was obsessing about what are people worried about, What are they experiencing? What are they concerned about? What are the tactics that maybe they can try to implement? Those kinds of things. So I would see a lot of posts. And I have, just by nature, an immense amount of empathy and compassion for people who are going through a job search. Not just because I was going through one myself. I hate to see people hurting. I hate to see people frustrated. I hate to see people feel less than. But I started seeing a few posts that I started to have a bit of a dichotomy in thinking. Because I started seeing posts that would be something along the lines of, I've been out of work for over a year. I've put in 1,200. I saw a person who had put in 2,000 applications. And their number of interviews they got out of those applications were less than 10 initial interviews. That's not even counting multiple rounds. And I found myself at a bit of a dichotomy in how I started looking at that. Because, as I stated, I have immense compassion and empathy for them. And if I knew them, if I was anywhere near them, I'd have a big urge to want to just give them a hug and say, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. But on the other hand, I'd see those statistics. 2,000 applications with less than 10 interviews. And I'd think, you're missing it. You're doing the definition of insanity. You're doing the exact same thing expecting a different result, and it's not working. And you're feeding your mind this negativity that I'll be fine. Like, it's not me, it's them. I got this great resume. I'm doing it right. I just need to put in the right application to the right company, and maybe that's true. But it's not working. And if you can start feeding your mind a little bit of positivity, hey, maybe I should reevaluate my tactic. I haven't been reaching out to in my network. I haven't been looking for the hidden job market. I haven't been trying to change the way I talk to professional contacts in my network. I haven't been making them value-based. I've been making them transactional. I've been basically just asking people if they know of something or if they can find a job for me, instead of looking at their situation and making the conversation about them and how you can add value to them, and looking at any job opportunity that may come up as an opportunity for you to use your inherent value and plug a hole or create economic value for that company. And I find myself wanting to hug them and wanting to shake them at the same time. Say, wake up a little bit. But I choose to look at the more positive side of, I just want to get this information out to them, because otherwise I'd be distraught for them or for myself. My number of applications was not that high. High enough, but not that high. And my ability to find an interview was a little bit better. And part of that was a change in tactic. But that's what I wanted to say. Take a lesson from what's been going on in our world this week and look at the different ways that you can see situations like that and what you can feed yourself. You can feed yourself extremely negative. You can feed yourself extremely positive. And that affects how you look at any given situation. And yes, when there's something as terrible as what happened this week, I'm not saying sugarcoat things and try to act like they're not there or not acknowledge that something is bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying what you search for, you will find. If you're searching for negative, you're only going to find negative. It'll be there. And if you're searching for positive, you can find that too. You can feed your soul more positivity, more optimism, and more you're going to be okay. And that's what I hope for each and every one of the people that is listening to this podcast right now. And if you are one of those people and you've made it the almost 30 minutes of this episode, thank you. It is an honor for you to hit the play button and listen to this podcast. It's a labor of love for me. It's something that I obsess over on other people, and I want to help as many people as I possibly can. So thank you for being one of those people that hopefully got something out of this. And if you've listened to many of these episodes, I'll never be able to thank you enough. And I know I'm a broken record and I say this every time, but I mean it every time. I cannot thank you enough for supporting by just hitting the play button. If you do know somebody that is going through a job search, that is struggling, that is down, feels like they're the only one, feels like they're a failure, please push this podcast their way. Please share it with them, especially if there's an episode that you've really enjoyed, a guest that you've really enjoyed, or a topic that I've just talked about. Push it their way. Hopefully it can help them. Hopefully they can find information that they maybe haven't thought of before, or just hear, hey man, or hey woman, you're okay. You're going to be okay. You're not a failure. You're not the only one, and you will find another opportunity, and you will thrive at that next opportunity. That'll do it for this episode of the Job Seekers Journey podcast. I want to thank you, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.